In France, a nation renowned for its rich history, culture, and professed commitment to liberty, equality, and fraternity, there exists a paradox that has long fueled debate and discourse. While the French Republic proudly upholds the principles of universalism, proclaiming equality for all citizens regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity, beneath this veneer lies a more complex and deeply ingrained reality, far from being colorblind. Despite assertions of racial equality, discrimination and racial disparities persist in French society, particularly affecting individuals of African and Afro-Caribbean descent, commonly referred to as Black people. In this discussion, we delve into the challenges faced by Black lives in France across various aspects of life, including education, labor, politics, and social events, shedding light on how France overlooks these issues, exacerbating the problem. The involvement of France in the transatlantic slave trade and the establishment of colonial outposts in the Caribbean mark the beginning of Black presence in French history. French colonists established plantations in the 17th century on islands like Haiti, Guadeloupe, and Martinique, where African slaves endured brutal exploitation on sugar, coffee, and tobacco plantations. France played a significant role in the transatlantic slave trade, connecting with Africa and the United States through the triangular trade. The demand for slaves in French colonies was driven by the profitability of cash crops, leading to harsh labor conditions, widespread disease, and severe punishments. After slavery's abolition, France turned to colonization, extending its colonial ambitions to West Africa. Despite its diverse population, including people of African descent, racism and discrimination persist in France, challenging its universalist ideals. The country's colorblind approach often overlooks the specific challenges faced by Black communities, with racism manifesting in various aspects of life, including employment, education, housing, and interactions with law enforcement. Incidents of police brutality and racial profiling have sparked protests and discussions about systemic racism in France. Educational disparities persist, with minority students, including those of African descent, often attending schools in disadvantaged neighborhoods lacking essential resources for academic success. The tracking system in the educational system sometimes disproportionately places minority students in lower tracks, limiting their opportunities for advancement. Moreover, the relationship between law enforcement and Black communities has been marred by allegations of racial profiling and police brutality, as seen in incidents like the deaths of Zed Benna and Batra, which ignited riots in the suburbs of Paris in 2005. Lamine Diang's death also underscored the harsh reality faced by immigrants and minorities in France. In Senegal, the death of D in police custody in 2007, attributed to asphyxiation, raised concerns about law enforcement's use of force and the need for accountability. Similarly, the 2018 death of Abubakar Fana, a young man of Malian descent in police custody, sparked protests and demands for justice in 2023. More recently, a 17-year-old delivery driver with North African roots was fatally shot by a police officer in a Paris suburb, igniting tensions between residents and law enforcement. In many of these cases, there have been allegations of inadequate investigations and a lack of accountability for the involved officers. Families and activists have called for independent investigations to ensure a fair and transparent process. Racial profiling by law enforcement remains a persistent issue in France, with individuals from Black and minority backgrounds reporting disproportionate targeting for identity checks. Critics argue that these checks often rely on appearance rather than reasonable suspicion, leading to feelings of harassment and discrimination. France has faced criticism for implementing stop-and-frisk policies, known as identity checks, disproportionately targeting Black and minority individuals. Critics advocate for reform or abolition of these policies to address racial profiling effectively. Calls for police reform include demands for improved training, oversight, and accountability mechanisms to address racial profiling and misconduct. Some also propose community policing initiatives to build trust between law enforcement and minority communities. However, Black entrepreneurs encounter significant challenges in France. Entrepreneurs like Sheila Sahai often face uphill battles when pitching to investors due to systemic biases. Despite being a Black woman CEO, Sahai finds herself greeted with surprise and often struggles to secure funding for her fintech startup. The lack of visibility into the startup and venture capital industry's racial diversity exacerbates this issue, leaving Black entrepreneurs at a disadvantage. Racial bias can manifest in lending institutions, making it difficult for Black entrepreneurs to secure loans or investments. Stereotypes and unconscious biases about the abilities and prospects of Black business owners hinder their access to funding and networks crucial for success. Economic disparities within black communities further compound these challenges, limiting access to collateral or personal funds needed for financial support. The rate drops even lower to 9% for residents of French overseas departments and regions. The complex dynamic between these territories' inhabitants and the police can be illustrated by a striking statistic: 49% reported being subjected to police checks at least once in the last 12 months, compared to 23% in a representative sample of the entire French population, as revealed by the Ipsos study, despite the undeniable prevalence of racial disparities. France has at times been reluctant to fully acknowledge the extent of racial discrimination within its borders. The strong emphasis on universalism and the hesitancy to recognize race as a significant factor in individuals' experiences have impeded the development of comprehensive policies aimed at addressing racial inequities. In recent years, however, there has been a growing emphasis on tackling racism and promoting diversity in France. Grassroots movements and activism led by the black community and their allies have played a crucial role in raising awareness about racial disparities and advocating for change in France. These movements have gained momentum, sparking discussions about race, racism, and the urgent need for tangible policy reforms. One such movement is the Justice for Adama movement, which emerged following the death of Adama Traoré in police custody. Adama Traoré's family has spearheaded this movement, demanding justice and accountability for their son's death. Protests and rallies organized by this movement have garnered significant attention and support, echoing the global Black Lives Matter movement catalyzed by the death of George Floyd in the United States. Solidarity protests and rallies have taken place across France, with activists using the platform to spotlight racial disparities and call for systemic change. Grassroots activists have leveraged social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to amplify their message, share personal stories, and mobilize supporters. Despite France's assertion of being a colorblind society, the experiences of black individuals within the country paint a different picture, a narrative shaped by historical legacies and contemporary challenges related to race and discrimination. The history of black people in France, spanning from the era of slavery and colonization to present-day struggles against racism, is a testament to resilience and resistance. While France continues to grapple with the tension between its universalist ideals and the reality of racial discrimination, efforts are underway to address systemic racism and foster inclusivity. Grassroots activism, government initiatives, and ongoing dialogue aim to confront these issues head-on and pave the way for a more equitable and inclusive society. As we conclude this video, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe to our channel and help spread awareness about the realities faced by black individuals, amplifying their voices and narratives. Thank you for watching.